Look in the mirror. If your eyes are blue, you're carrying a genetic accident that happened exactly once in the entire history of our species. Every blue-eyed person alive today shares a single common ancestor. But here's the strange part. Your eyes aren't actually blue. There's no blue pigment in them at all. You're looking at the world through what's essentially an optical illusion. And the first human being who ever had this trait didn't look anything like you'd expect. Their skin was dark, almost black. For roughly 300,000 years, every human on Earth had brown eyes. No exceptions. That wasn't an accident, it was survival. Early humans lived under a relentless equatorial sun, and sunlight does more than burn skin. It breaks down nutrients essential for healthy pregnancies and damages the delicate tissue of the eyes. The body's defense was melanin, a natural pigment that absorbs ultraviolet light before it can cause damage. A gene called OCA2, sitting on chromosome 15, ran the factory that produced it, packing every iris with protective brown pigment. That system worked, and evolution had no reason to touch it for hundreds of thousands of years. Then, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, near the Black Sea, something broke. A child was born, and for the first time in human history, their eyes weren't brown. They were blue. In 2008, researchers at the University of Copenhagen traced the mutation back to its source. They studied the DNA of blue-eyed people across Denmark, Jordan, and Turkey, and found the exact same mutation at the exact same spot in the genome in every single person tested. The odds of that happening by chance are close to zero. It happened once, in one person, and spread to hundreds of millions of people alive today. The mutation didn't even strike OCA2 itself. It hit a neighboring switch called HERC2, which controls how much OCA2 turns on. It didn't shut the factory down completely, that would cause albinism. It just dimmed it, and only in the iris, diluting the brown pigment until it effectively vanished. And that's where the illusion comes in. A blue eye contains no blue pigment at all. Its front layer, the stroma, is just translucent collagen fiber. Light hits it and scatters, and shorter wavelengths, like blue, scatter the most, bouncing back out toward you. It's the identical physics behind why the sky is blue. No pigment up there either. Just sunlight scattering off air. A blue eye is a structural trick of light, happening inside a lack of substance. Now here's where the story gets genuinely strange. Most people assume the first blue-eyed humans were pale, blonde, and Scandinavian. Ancient DNA says otherwise. In 2014, scientists sequenced the genome of a 7,000-year-old hunter-gatherer skeleton pulled from a cave in Spain. He had dark, almost black skin, dark curly hair, and the HERC2 mutation for blue eyes. Years later, the same test on a 10,000-year-old skeleton found in England, known as Cheddarman, turned up the identical combination: dark skin, blue eyes. This wasn't a fluke, it was the standard look of European hunter-gatherers for thousands of years. These early Europeans survived on meat and fish, both loaded with vitamin D. Because their diet supplied it directly, their bodies felt no pressure to lose the dark protective melanin their African ancestors relied on. Skin color and eye color turn out to be controlled by entirely separate genetic systems. And in these people, they evolved on completely different timelines. So why did Europeans eventually turn pale? Farming, around 10,000 years ago, agriculture spread across the continent, and grain replaced wild game as the dietary staple. Grain carries almost no vitamin D, and combined with Europe's weak winter sunlight, dark-skinned farmers began developing rickets, a bone disease that was often fatal without modern medicine. Any mutation producing lighter skin suddenly became a massive survival advantage, since pale skin lets weak sunlight synthesize vitamin D more efficiently. That trait swept through fast, but thousands of years after blue eyes had already taken hold. Blue eyes are older than white skin in Europe, which leaves an unsolved mystery. We know exactly why pale skin spread. It stopped people from dying. Blue eyes offer no such advantage. They're more light-sensitive, worse for hunting, worse for protecting the retina, and evolution doesn't usually reward a trait that provides nothing. Scientists have proposed several competing explanations. Maybe it was sexual selection. In a population where every face had brown eyes, a bright blue pair would have stood out, and novelty tends to attract mates. Maybe it's a founder effect, where a handful of migrants carrying the mutation settled northern Europe first, and their genes eventually seeded the whole region. Some researchers point to how a pale iris makes the pupil unusually easy to read, exposing subtle emotional cues, and in a small cooperative society, that kind of visible trustworthiness might have mattered as much as any physical advantage. Others suspect simple genetic hitchhiking, since the HERC2 mutation sits close to genes tied to skin pigmentation and may have just been dragged along for the ride. No one has definitively solved it. What we do know is written in the map. Today, blue eyes cluster around the Baltic Sea. In Estonia and Finland, close to 90% of people carry them. Move south toward Africa or Asia, and the trait nearly disappears. It's a living record of where a single ancient mutation traveled and where it didn't. Every newborn in Europe or North America carries a small echo of that history. Babies are often born with blue-gray eyes because the melanin-producing cells in the iris are still immature. Over the first year, as those cells wake up, the eyes darken, unless the child carries that one ancient mutation, in which case the factory stays quiet, and the illusion of blue remains for life. Every time an infant's eyes shift from blue to brown, you're watching, in miniature, the same process that took our species 300,000 years to complete. We like to imagine evolution as a clean line from primitive to modern, pale skin and light eyes arriving together as a tidy package built for the cold north. The bones tell a messier story. We were dark-skinned hunters, carrying an accidental eye color through forests and ice ages, for thousands of years before we ever planted a single seed. We're not the polished endpoint of a plan. We're the accumulated result of accidents, diet, and pure chance, written, quite literally, into the color of your eyes.